Tonight, we acknowledge one of our spiritual and political ancestors, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose birthday is tomorrow. We re-listen for the radical tradition that he embodied and what this can offer for our world, faced with so many challenges and brokenness at this time. We cannot afford to think small. We need transformative and radical vision and action to be faithful people. This evening also, we acknowledge and honor the ancestors of indigenous communities on whose land we sit. I myself am on Chochenyo Ohlone land, whose ancestors have been buried here and for whom since time immemorial, this has been their homeland. We pray to work together with their descendants for right relationship and self-determination. We also acknowledge the ancestors who labored on this land under more than 3 centuries of enslavement until emancipation. And we acknowledge that there are still those who labor in new forms of exploitation to whom our existence is tied. May we repair and practice justice. Lastly, I'd like to invite each of you, if you haven't already, to add your name in the chat and perhaps to honor an ancestor by family or by spirit or activism who you'd like to name into this space tonight. The first person who told me about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was my mother when I was 8 years old. My mother is an immigrant from the islands of Indonesia who was transported to the Rust Belt of northeastern Ohio and wanted me to understand the world that was our home. That there were groups of people in Ohio, like the Ku Klux Klan, determined to hold power and hold some people down in our society by use of brute violence and force. According to her, they were against African Americans, Jewish people, and the Chinese. I was quite surprised because in my experience, we seemed to be the only Chinese family in Ohio. So how we had been noticed, much less thought of as important enough to be feared and hated, seemed unusual. But I learned 2 things. One, that my fate was tied up with others, was tied up with Black folks and Jewish folks. Although at 8, I didn't know what that was. The seeds of solidarity. The second thing was the last scene of the picture book about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It was a sea of people being led by Dr. King, ordinary people, purposeful, marching side by side. The scene of a movement to demand dignity, to take power, to transform with dignity and strength. Tonight is the first part of a 2-part series to re-examine the call for radical transformation embodied in the praxis of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Part 1 is tonight, and you'll hear from invited faith leaders from different religious traditions who've committed their lives in the tradition of justice. We've asked them to share the impact of Dr. King's radical tradition on their life and activism, and to illuminate the relevance for this current moment. Tonight is also a fundraiser to launch our Spiritual Activists in Residence program and a chance for you all to meet our inaugural resident, Charles Joseph. The interfaith movement brings people of faith and moral conscience together to work towards immigrant justice and reject mass incarceration as twin systems of racial injustice. Thank you, Janet. We call for the ending of all forms of incarceration and putting in its place investments into systems of care and thriving, prevention and root causes. We reject the division of people into good and bad, worthy and unworthy. We believe we have a shared humanity and a collective future. In a few weeks on February 4th, we invite you to join us for part 2, a reading and small group discussions on the letter from a Birmingham jail, written by Dr. King specifically to faith leaders while he was in jail, to listen for what message might be heard today of how we can be bold in our organizing for this year to achieve a place where all can fully participate and thrive. So I invite you to take a breath. For an opening music, we're blessed this evening by the guest musician, Benjamin Mertz, a master and tradition carrier of the Black spiritual tradition and music of the African diaspora. He's also an educator on racism, diversity, and racial equity. Thank you, Benjamin.
If you know the words, you can sing along. I was born by the river on a little old tent. Just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know that a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. I said I go to the movies and I can go downtown. All I keep hearing is they telling me don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know that a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Let me tell you something. I go to my brother. I say, brother, help me please. But he winds up, oh, knocking me. I said, back down on my knees. Oh, there were times when I thought that I wouldn't last for long. Somehow I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming. Yet somehow I know that a change gonna come. I said it's been a long, Lord knows, long time coming. Yet I know that a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to affirm the appropriateness of this moment, the appropriateness of this event, and specifically the appropriateness of the theme, the radical king. So tonight I want to share with you how I became radicalized by the radical Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There are two important sequential and consequential experiences during my childhood, adolescent years that shaped my life and that has impacted me to this day with regard to being involved in the justice work. The first occurred in 1963 with the Children's March that was orchestrated and led by Dr. King and the SCLC and others. I was only 8 years old at the time. I lived in a rural, segregated town nestled in Northeast Louisiana. And prior to the Children's March, the fact that the town where I resided was segregated had no impact on me. At least I didn't understand how it was impacted me or had impacted me. It had no impact because it was normal. I attended an all-Black school, never ventured outside of a Black neighborhood during day or night, unless it was to go to school. And the only exception was going to get an ice cream cone from a local hamburger stand and milkshake stand, where I promptly followed the sign that said colored only. That was the norm. It was the norm. And so whenever I did venture outside of my town, my neighborhood, when I saw the whites only sign, I knew that I was unwelcome, or at least I knew that it was not a place for me. But then when I saw the Children's March in 1963, Birmingham, and I looked on the television with my family, and I saw children who looked like me, being beaten, being bitten by dogs, with water hoses and fire hoses being turned on them. I was horrified at seeing that. And then later on, I learned from the newscast, a Black preacher whom they call Reverend King had orchestrated this. And then I became angry. I became angry at this Black man who dared to use children and subject them to this kind of hostility and brutality. So I didn't understand it. I didn't know what was happening at that time. Because in my town, it was just normal. It was just normal for Black folk to live in one area of town and white folk to live in the other area of town, and for Blacks to go to one school and for whites to go to another school. But this event with the children shook me to my core. And then finding that there was a Black man behind it made me angry, because as a child, I said, what is he trying to do? He's trying to get me killed. He's going to get all of us killed. But then a few weeks, months passed, and then I began to relive the experience of those children. And then I began to question, why was it that I had to drive 5 miles or take a bus 5 miles from my neighborhood to go to school and pass the white school on the way? I began to question, why did I have to walk to class, being guarded and cautious about not stepping into the feces that flowed out of the broken pipes? And why did we have to go to classrooms that were overheated or without heat in the winter? And then in 1968, the second thing happened. It was the death of Dr. King. And again, I watched on television, this time at this all Black school with my Black classmates, watched his funeral. And that shattered my heart to see his family and to see him being carried to his burial place. But then everything changed. Amazingly, it changed once I saw his funeral and once he died, and I felt the pain. At the same time I felt the pain, I was overcome with a profound sense of freedom. Freedom in the sense that I finally realized what he died for and what he was doing. And so 2 years later, in 1970, I became the first Black student at the age of 15 to join the Franklin Parish Southern Christian Leadership Conference, where each day after school, I would go to what we call Uptown and boycott white stores and white store owners in order for them to hire Blacks in their stores. And from that time until now, I've been what Dr. King has called a drum major. I've tried to be a drum major for justice and a drum major for freedom and liberation, for marginalized and for oppressed people, for women and for children. And so today, I stand as a drum major for justice with the Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity, because it's one of those organizations that heard Dr. King and who warned us that we must not be careful to sleep through a revolution. And we have a revolution now and a movement that's going on with mass incarceration. I don't intend to sleep through this movement. And so I've committed my work and my time and my efforts to making sure that our brothers and sisters who are in prison and those who have been released from prison do experience freedom, equal access and opportunity, and the right to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I owe it to Dr. King and to his radical teachings about love and his call for freedom and justice. And so I thank you for imbibing me for these few minutes, but that's my story. That's how I became radicalized by the radical King. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. I'd like to invite people just to put their hands on their heart and breathe with you for the gift that we've received from you, from your remembrance. Of your call up to this journey for justice. Next, I'd like to invite Rabbi Lynn Gottlieb, who's the chair of our board.
Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum. I am Lynn. My name in my tradition when I'm called up for ceremony is Miriam, Bat Sivia, Bat Bessie, Bat Delia, Bat Jenny, Bat Henrietta, who came to Turtle Island on Lehigh land in 1839, before the Civil War. Thank you, Larry, for sharing your story, and to all my ancestors and to everyone who is experiencing loss and grief and separation in this moment. I offer these words and pray for healing. In the Jewish prophetic tradition in which I was raised, the truest form of piety, as King often said, is to let justice roll down like mighty waters. The truest form of piety is the daily pursuit of justice. I learned this lesson after having experienced the segregation of the South from rabbis who influenced me as a teenager. In the late 1960s, Rabbi Everett Gendler and Rabbi Michael Robinson responded to King's call to get involved in civil rights by showing up on various front lines in the South, getting arrested, and then coming back and telling us Jewish young people about it and organizing us to act. Our community had, after all, just lived through the genocide of 6 million Jewish relatives in Europe, murdered by an infamous white supremacist regime that stirred up ancient Euro-Christian hatred against Jews and brown people and queer people, a regime that incited citizen mobs and militias so they could take power through acts of horrifying violence while the world stood by. The rabbis of my youth equated inaction with death. When speaking of the Holocaust, they would say to us, never again means never again for anybody. Their activism to abolish American apartheid was their Jewish response to the Holocaust, and it became mine. I grew up steeped in the practice of Kingian nonviolence because they were involved. I learned how to feel comfortable disturbing the status quo, creatively dramatizing injustice, and building beloved community by going to the front lines. As King often said, nonviolence, militantly conceived, executed, and well organized, is the most potent weapon available in the struggle for freedom and human dignity. When King was invited by my Rebbe, the man who ordained me, Rabbi Everett Gendler, to mostly Ashkenazi rabbinic assembly, all the conservative rabbis gathered together just 10 days before he was murdered by the hand of white supremacy. The rabbis asked King, "What can we do?" King responded by asking them to mobilize their congregations to provide the logistical support needed to sustain the thousands of people participating in the Poor People's Campaign. King centered the experience of Black people who organized the campaign and detailed their needs: food, economic support, childcare, transportation assistance, legislative advocacy. Most importantly, King called upon the rabbis to show up and be part of frontline witness. That message impacted me and is part of King's legacy in my life. In this moment, I hear the echoes of King's message in the heartbeat of the interfaith movement for human integrity. Interfaith movement offers everything I need to feel usefully engaged and spiritually at peace in this moment. Interfaith movement for human integrity is, first of all, a place I meet loving and committed people who practice shared values of radical inclusion, human dignity across all bars and borders, the pursuit of equity, and collective accountability. I love centering my activism to address root causes of harm as defined by those experiencing that harm. I love the openness to truth-telling and the commitment to movement building and direct action. I love that we often experience success. It's good to celebrate victories that make a difference in people's lives. I love the respect for ceremony and witness that uplifts my spirit. I love addressing America's brutal and racist systems of incarceration, militarism, and colonial settlerism with acts of abolition, reparation, and accompaniment in community. That's why today I am donating another $200. I even talked myself to doubling my own donation in addition to my monthly contributions to support our spiritual activists and residents program. I invite you to give in a way that feels generous to you so we can continue to grow King's legacy and together build the just, radically hospitable and loving world we want to see. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ruach haolam hamatir asurim. Blessed is the Spirit of life who sets the incarcerated free.
Amen. Hold on just a little while longer. Hold on just a little while longer. Hold on just a little while longer. Everything gonna be alright. Everything gonna be alright. Sometimes you've got to pray on just a little while longer. Pray on just a little while longer. Pray on just a little while longer. 'Cause everything gonna be alright. Oh, everything gonna be alright. Sometimes you've got to fight on just a little while longer. Oh, fight on just a little while longer. Fight on just a little while longer. 'Cause everything is gonna be alright. Oh, just a little while longer. Hold on, just a little while longer. Everything gonna be alright. Oh, everything gone, but sometimes you've got to fight on. Just a little while longer. Fight on. Just a little while, little while, little while, little while, little while. Just a little while long. Everything's gonna be alright.
Thank you, Benjamin. I'd like to introduce Charles Joseph. Charles Joseph is a native of Fiji. He's of mixed race, Fijian and Indian heritage. And as he says it, has experienced all the benefits of being Black in the United States. Immigrated to California when he was 14 years old. 10 months ago, I got my first call from Charles Joseph. He was inside one of California's immigration detention centers in Bakersfield. I had already met the amazing women in his family, his mother, Alamita, who's here tonight, his spouse, Shelley, his daughters, who'd been waiting for him to get released, finally paroled after serving 12 years in state prison. But instead, he was taken away by ICE 200 miles away to a detention facility. The women in his family did not stop for a day, passing out postcards, talking to decision makers, making phone calls, trying to stop his deportation. When Charles called from prison early last spring, California was just shutting down for the pandemic, but the detention centers were not. They were adding people, transferring people. There was no social distancing, and the private prison and detention business was running as usual. Charles began organizing immigrants who spoke different languages from all over the world inside the men's dorm, raising demands for PPE and sharing the cry of humanity from fathers, brothers, uncles, and grandfathers afraid of dying in detention. 2 months later, Charles was one of the first immigrants to be released from that detention facility by judicial order. And the current population of the detention center has dropped from over 200 to less than 40. Next month, Charles will begin work at the Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity as our inaugural spiritual activist in residence. Although limited to house arrest and still facing the possibility of deportation, Charles Joseph will continue to advocate for those who are still stuck behind bars. It's my pleasure to present to you Mr. Charles Joseph.
Thank you, Reverend Deborah Lee. You have been a blessing to me and my family's lives. I'm honored to be a part of the Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity's family. I want to offer up a song. This song taught to me by a mentor and community leader and a person I consider my brother, Remus Langi, who is still in Solano State Prison and is fighting for commutation from Governor Gavin Newsom. I do this the best way I know how. Sao sawi ataho etau heve neio pe sau tono nofo ile malie asiolo to Havaneie toema salo fua Peisitale tolu peaso sola I manua Sau sawiata o etau heveva neio Pe sau tono no fo ile malie asio loto Hovaneye toema salo salo fuwa. Beisitale tolupea so sola imanua. Sau sawiata ho etau eveva neio. Pesa utonono fo ile malie sio loto. Hovaneye toema salo salo fua. Beisitale tolu peaso solai manua. Beisitale tolu peaso solai manua. Oh, on my relations. Blessing in abundance. I'm so blessed. Bula to all. My name is Charles Robert Joseph, formerly incarcerated, released from ICE detention. Um, it's such a blessing. It's such a blessing to have this honor and be here. What does spiritual activism mean to me? You know, when I was talked about with this position, is what does this mean to me? And for me, is one who stands up for those who are oppressed. You know, and promoting this oneness of existence. You know, I believe we all fall under the one creator, and we're all one in this life. Willingness to challenge unjust laws, just as in when Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., you know, standing for freedom, fighting against the unjust laws in Birmingham, you know, and standing up. And that's what spiritual activism means to me. Someone who's willing to stand up. You know, laws just like that. And there are many laws this day, you know, being part of that, being in that system of mass incarceration, being one who suffered, it's difficult. You know, just in that time of Reverend Martin Luther King standing up for those who were oppressed and freedom, well, there are people who are enslaved here today in this mass incarceration system. This is modern day slavery. And being oppressed for so long, everybody, man, woman, wants freedom, you know, and will cry out for freedom and move towards it. People who are not in it may not feel so so impacted by it. They may not understand it because they have not been in it. You have not suffered. But for those who have suffered, help cannot come quick enough, you know. Uh, Everyone, you know, Martin Luther King also speaks of this peace, you know, certain types of peace. Peace such as he says negative peace, which is the absence of tension, and positive peace, which is the presence of justice. And I am one for that, you know, and I believe when I read that and hearing him say that, that's true. And even to this day, this is true. There's a lot of people who rather just go with peace, you know, with the absence of tension and not trying to have confrontation and just keep peace. And then there's positive peace, you know, and I feel we need to move towards this. And I want to be a part of this movement towards this positive peace, you know, which is the presence of justice. Also, Martin Luther King speaks of he speaks of many things, but he speaks of this respect of oneness, this sacredness. And I want to work towards the end of all systems that does not respect the sacredness of life, where we are and live, and each other's right to be who we are, helping to heal the past and those who have been victimized and hurt, so we can begin to restore community, inspiring each other to respect where we are and those around us, because all creation deserves respect. I feel respect is the biggest thing. You know, if we can just respect and hold that at the forefront, not expecting to be respected in order to respect. If we can just walk into a room, give respect, see people and give respect. If respect is in the forefront, respecting the air we breathe, respecting the water we drink, you know, these things are life-giving. We need this. Respecting Mother Earth, you know, she takes all our toxins and yet she still feeds us, giving us nourishment to life.
All right, come
I have a poem I wanted to share with you guys. This poem I wrote 2 days ago. It goes, dysfunction and uncertainty spiked the water that was given to me. Domestic violence led to loss of guidance, and now my opportunities are lost to me. Crossed was me, so they tossed and lost the key. Trapped in the cage was gonna be the life for me. From 4.0 to hitting the flow and feeling sore. Scoring goals and tries to trying just to stay alive. Dreams to thrive, drives lives to burn fires. And yet my feet still never tires. Still never buyers of liars and lines of barbed wires. Why us? Why us? Us who can't fuss, hurt yet still trust. Justice, just ice hearts we can't touch. Torch the flames up, the game's up, the day's up. Much respect, much love to all.
Amen. Ashe.
Thank you so much, Charles. As many of you can see, Charles brings a lot of artistic gifts. So it's a spiritual activist, artist in residence. So I know you'll be using your creative gifts as well as ways to speak and outreach to the communities. Tonight, we'd like to invite you to help launch the Spiritual Activist in Residence program. We can't have a movement without people. And at Interfaith Movement, we're investing in the leadership of people of faith, immigrants, and formerly incarcerated individuals. So tonight, we'd like to invite you to be part of investing in leaders as we launch this program beginning February 1st. We believe that folks like Charles possess expertise and wisdom from their lived experiences of living through incarceration or immigration detention. Charles is an ideal messenger to transform hearts and minds, educate, and find and identify policy solutions. And he has the passion to want to end these unjust systems and to leave the community transformatively different. The residency program is a way for us to institutionalize this leadership development and in our organization. This program is also a pilot. Maybe we can go to the next slide. This is a pilot project in partnership with the San Francisco Public Defender's Office. So as you can see, we are well on our way to getting this program launched. We have some commitments. We're going to be hearing from New Breath Foundation, one of the foundation sponsors, a little bit later. And tonight, I just wanted to let you know we are in total $10,000 shy of reaching our goal for the whole program for 2021. And tonight we have a goal to try to raise $5,000. And I have gotten notice from Cecilia that we already have, let's see, we already have $1,205. So I would like to ask those of you out there who might be willing to make a generous donation to support this program. There are founding circle members whose names are listed there who have already given $1,000 towards this. So I would like to find out, there might be someone else out there who would also be willing to be a founding circle member who could give $1,000 towards this. And if you can do that, we have one. Thank you so much, Marcia Hoffman. We have another, so thank you for that. So I'd like to just invite you to think about whatever you can give, and most generally, or to pledge for this year. It might be 1,000, it might be 500. Rabbi Lynn's donating 200. Any amount will help us reach our goal. In a little bit, we're going to go on to our next interfaith speaker, and a little bit later, we'll hear a little bit more from Eddie Zhang and our board member, Maram Batta.
Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, go ahead, Maram.
Yeah, okay. Assalamu alaikum, shalom alaikum, peace be upon you. I'm Maram Batta, a Muslim Palestinian American and the Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity board member. A few years ago, I was invited to an IM 4HI Interfaith Movement vigil in front of West County ICE jail, advocating for immigrants and their families. Being on the ground with affected communities, let me realize that social justice was missing from my interfaith work. Being a believing Muslim is not a passive act. It means actively upholding and protecting values such as justice and equality. In the holy book of Muslims, the Quran, God says, "O you who believe, be upright for God and be bearers of witness with justice." I believe all the struggles are connected, and we need to work together to dismantle the systems of oppression in the United States, Palestine, South America, Africa, and all of the world. These systems are all connected by greed, money, arms trade. These are things that Dr. King spoke against. In all of our faith traditions, giving to charity purifies the human's heart, and it is also a proof of one's faith. In the Muslim tradition of giving, zakah is the compulsory giving of a set proportion of one's wealth to charity. It is regarded as a type of worship and self-purification. Sadaqah is the voluntary charitable gifts given out of kindness or generosity. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Charity does not in any way decrease the wealth." Today's donations are towards an on-the-ground position and leader fighting injustices. And you heard him. I don't know. I think everybody wants to give to this position because he's in the ground and he was incarcerated. So we feel it with you, but it's different when it's the experience itself. So you will bring the experience to our work. I will match you, Rabbi Lynn, your donation. And I am asking you all to give generously, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I also have gotten the message that we have a $2,000 match offer. So anything you give will be doubled. So thank you all so much for those who have already given. If you'd like to make a pledge, you can message Cecilia in the chat or me. So I'd like to continue on with our program, and we're so honored to have Amir, Sundiata, Rasheed, who's the Amir at the Lighthouse Mosque in Oakland, one of the most active and socially involved mosques in the Bay Area.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina al-Mursaleen, Nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. I'm very, very honored to be and participating in this program. And I'm very, very, a lot of times you have like charitable giving to place like maybe the Shriners Hospital, where if you give or you don't give, they still gonna make it. You know what I'm saying? Because they got endowments, they got people giving money. But then you have organizations like this where your donation is actually gonna keep the organization functioning. It's gonna be able to provide this position for Brother Charles. So I would just encourage anybody who's watching to give any amount that they can. And just on the subject of I was going to say Malcolm X, but this is the wrong month. This is Martin Luther King. You know, America is a pharaonic society, meaning you can look in the Bible, you can look in the Torah, you can look in the Quran, and you read about what Pharaoh did, and you see what happens in America, and it's pretty much right on par. And even a lot of the symbols that America has on its money, or even some of the monuments that they have in Washington, come straight from ancient Egypt, right? And that's because they take Pharaoh as a goal. And one of the things Pharaoh did was he divided up the people of Egypt into different groups. And he oppressed one of those groups, which was the Israelites. He put them at the bottom of the totem pole. And he thought that doing these things would make him successful. And in the Holy Quran, in Surah Al-Qasas, Allah says, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُونَ الَّذِينَ وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُونَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتَضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلْ لَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلْ لَهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. So God Almighty, he's saying that he personally wanted to show a favor to those who have been made weak in the land, those who have been marginalized, those who have been disenfranchised. God took it upon himself to show a favor to these people and make these people the leaders in the land and make these people the inheritors in the land. And so God, when he talked about this in the context of the Israelites, but he speaks in the perfect tense, meaning this is an ongoing struggle. So when you see somebody like Martin Luther King and what he means to not just Black people, but humanity as a whole, it's because of this verse. God is telling you he's going to take people who you think ain't worth anything and make them into the leaders. And this was Martin Luther King. And this is the incarcerated people who you see today coming out of jail, like Brother Charles, and being put in a position of leadership. Because once God decides to do something, that thing is going to be done. And so we got a lot of naysayers around the world, or not even around the world, just, you know, in the United States. I mean, people crazy, man. But the more they do what they do, the more they highlight that this is the Pharaoh system, right? Because everybody been saying Black people and brown people wouldn't have been able to do that at the Capitol. When I seen it happen, I was like, man, I didn't know it would be that easy. You know, when I was young, I was an inspiring revolutionary. I was like, man, we were doing a lot of planning. All we used to do was just recruit some white people to just go take over the government. But so that's what I wanted to say, is that it's a long struggle, you know what I'm saying? And people like Martin Luther King and their leadership. I mean, Martin Luther King was our Moses in America, man. He really, really was. And he means so much to this nation. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it wasn't for Martin Luther King, this nation would have probably been destroyed a long time ago. And I don't want to speak too long, but I just wanted to put it out there. And the way he did his movement through nonviolence, that was key, because that's the only way it could have worked. You know what I'm saying? And that's why he was successful. So I would just say that, and then I'll turn it back over. And anybody who got some money, please donate, God willing. Thank you very much.
My man's talking about Pharaoh up in here. So this wasn't the one I was planning on, but you got to do this one now. I said, please go down Moses, way down in Egypt's land, and tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. Oh, when Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Oh, pressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. I said, go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land, tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. No more shall they in bondage toil, let my people go. Until they find the freedom soil, let my people go. I said, go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land, and tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. Let me tell you something. We need not always weep and mourn. Let my people go and wear these slavery chains forlorn. Let my people, we can just say, go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land, and tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. We got to tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. We've got to tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. We've got to tell old Pharaoh to let my people
I'd like to invite our last spiritual reflector, Reverend Lynn, part of the founder and teacher of Access to Zen and teacher in many of the Zen communities around the Bay Area.
Thank you, Deb. I'm putting in chat for everyone words from Dr. King, from letters from Birmingham jail. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I'm from Vietnam. I was born during the war, and due to the causes and condition, I came to the US towards the end of the war. And I was born in a Buddhist family and came here and actually became a Presbyterian through adoption. And then started meditating with in the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition, actually, with Vietnamese friends. And of course, we know that Thich Nhat Hanh was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Dr. King, and then also that Dr. King had his inspiration from Mahatma Gandhi. So all these sense of the interconnectedness of our movements and how they come together. So I was asked actually to offer a meditation that's based on what's called the net of Indra. It's a Buddhist and actually from the Vedic, an older Indian system of faith. We're presented with a sense of the universe as a net that's connected, and that where each node of that net is each of us reflecting each other. And so what happens with me affects you. And the net is also three-dimensional, right? So I wanna invite you to find a position that feels settling. And I'm gonna actually weave in Dr. King's interconnected world sermon with this the net of Indra, right? So one way that we can know our sense of interconnectedness is really through just a sense of groundedness in the earth. And Thich Nhat Hanh himself actually says that whatever sense that you're feeling, settle now, perhaps your sitting bones if you're seated, or your feet if you're standing. Imagine like roots being sent down. And as we all know, the deeper the roots, the stronger the tree, right? But also the roots is another system. So that could be the image of a net as roots, or perhaps for you, it's a sense of a breeze or warmth that's extended, or light, whatever it is, to have a sense of connection. Dr. King says, let me suggest first that if we are to have peace on earth, our loyalties must become equanimical rather than sectional. Our loyalties must transcend our race, our tribe, our class, and our nation. And this means we must develop a world perspective. No individual can live alone. No nation can live alone. And as long as we try, the more we are going to have a war in this world. Right? Now, the judgment of God is upon us, and we must either learn to live together as brothers, sisters, siblings, those are my additions, or we are all going to perish together as fools. Yes, as nation and individuals, we are interdependent. So just really have a sense that even in this room, you could say, the connections you have between the people here, really just have that as a sense of not just the person, but the feeling and the relation as the connection, the actions we've done together. Many of us have met on the streets, in the, doing actions, be it in anywhere in the Bay Area. So think of that as a form of connection, an active, a connection that's not passive, a connection that's produces change and transformation, that guides us and supports us, that we're not alone in this work. And I want to invite that sense of connection. Also feel it coming back. If I'm feeling the connection and sending support to you, then let yourself feel it. So many of us do a lot for our communities and these issues, which are part of our lives and really important. And we can let ourselves be replenished by the sense that we're doing this together, and that it makes a difference. So both in the giving and the receiving, let yourself, right? A call and response. This is a naturalness. It really boils down to this, that all life is interrelated. We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied into a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Lynn. Can we go to the slides? I want to just thank you, because I think what you reminded us is that we have done something tonight. I'm told by Cecilia we have met our goal, and so thank all of you. I'm going to wait to get a grand total here, but we have met the $5,000 goal. and actually are at $8,299. So what we've just experienced through the meditation, we've actually shown what we could do tonight together in launching this spiritual activist and resident program, and that it's just an example of what we're also going to be doing together this year in terms of the change that we're going to be making in the world and in our state of California. I want to invite Eddie Zhang, who is the founder, someone who's just been such an amazing leader in the state of California and nationally around reform in the criminal justice system and the immigration system, who's founded New Breath Foundation as one of our first sponsors for this position. I'd like to invite him to give a word. And if you could all hang on, we're just going to be here for another 10 minutes.
Thank you, Reverend Deb. Happy New Breath, everyone. My name is Eddie Zhang. My pronoun is he, him. And I want to invite all of you to take a deep breath with me. Just one of those deep breaths that really exhale. When you exhale, there's no stealth air left in our diaphragm, right? Because a lot of times we take shallow breaths and then we really don't take the breath seriously or the amazing breath that is sustaining our lives, right? So we always take that for granted. So take that breath. And empty it all out, right? So we can have renewed breath and renewed life. And, for me as a formerly incarcerated individual who spent 21 years of my life in the prison industrial complex, I know firsthand how spirituality was able to provide the hope and healing that I desperately needed to really find my freedom. And the freedom that I talked about is not just the physical freedom. It's that mental freedom that eventually led me to have this physical freedom for life. And so that's why the interfaith movement is the moral compass, right, in our society. And it's a validation that if we are working together to continue to lead by example about what love and peace and hope looks like, then we're able to really to pay it forward. Right. And, in the spirit of Dr. King, one of the quotes that I really appreciate is that he said that life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? It is what people have given me that allow me the opportunity to be in your presence today, right? There's no way possible that I would have been here without people who made those sacrifices to allow me to have the privilege that I have today. And for that, I want to say that all of you have already been giving so much through your lived experience and through your demonstration of love and compassion. And so with this program, is supporting a formerly incarcerated impact individual, and not only on his healing and transformation, but really how he can give back to our community to continue to cultivate more leaders and more people of faith to really pay it forward. So let's reach that $10,000 goal right there to make it that 75,000, right? Because we have come so far with 8,200, it's just another 1,800 more, And I know with all of your support, we can make this possible.
Thank you so much, Eddie. I think I met you like a decade ago, and I just think of how many lives you have touched through your freedom and your advocacy and the leadership you and model and inspiration you have given to so many others. And I know that's true for Charles too. I know he's inspired others already, and I know that through this work, this rest of the year, many, many, many more lives and families are going to be touched. So I want to thank all of you. I think, Janet, can you bring me up the slideshow? I'm kind of lost in the program, but I think we're at the closing prayer.
Yeah, we
not mistaken. I want to invite you to, just based on what you've heard tonight, maybe to invite you to put in the chat any commitments Any commitments to your organizing and your justice work this year that may have been stirred up by some of the reflections, the music, the feelings that you had tonight? Any commitments you'd like to make for this year ahead in terms of the organizing work we are going to do together, to be bolder and to embody that radical vision? In a few weeks, we're going to invite you to come back together. If you're already registered for tonight, we'll send you information of how to register for part 2. Invite you to read the letter from Birmingham jail and receive it as a message to the interfaith community, and specific to some of our tendencies to, want things to be not so radical, or maybe not so loud, or not so disruptive, or not so, whatever those tendencies are. The message is for us. And so we're going to look at that and think about, how is that pushing us to go bolder and bigger, to achieve the world that we really want, and that we need to make big steps this year, at least to set that mark, to set the goal. My closing prayer for us is that the way and the means is everything. The goal is beloved community. It's not just some moment far away in the future, but beloved community in the here and the now, in the steps along the way, in the events, in the meetings, in the coming together, in the front line, in the vigils, in the actions, in the being with one another. May we have the courage to see and confront who we really are as a nation. And may this revelation be a step forward towards true healing and transformation. May we be nourished, help us to prioritize, to be bolder, to dedicate ourselves to pursue justice in our daily lives, in our call to give our lives to love and justice. We pray for our betterment as a nation, that we strive not to be the most powerful nation, but to be the most fair, the most equitable, the most compassionate. May we take in the words that we have heard tonight to be the net for one another, to deepen roots, to give and to receive, to pursue a just and radical world, to provide logistical support, to help others to see the injustice that is all around us, to experience freedom and liberation in their own life transformations. I am so grateful for the ways that all of you and your lives have been called to justice, and the people and the experiences who moved you in that direction. And I'm so grateful that we can walk this journey together. May we commit ourselves to the building of that more perfect union, grounded in principles of our interdependence, our shared humanity, and collective future. May it be so, and go in peace. And I don't know if there's, thank you so much, all of you. I think we have a closing song from Benjamin.
Oh, we got a closing song.
All right. And then I'm going to give you a closing tally too. Okay.
My dear friends, is there another organization like the Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity to see the intergenerational, interfaith, interrelational, intergender organization of people coming together, creating something beautiful together, lifted up for justice, lifted up for the common beauty of the common human experience? I am loving what they do here. When Rabbi Lynn Gottlieb called me and said, we're doing an event on the radical king, I said, was there ever any other king? Was there ever any other Martin Luther King? I am not aware of the moderate king. I haven't met him. I ain't never heard of no moderate king. And I get so much joy in having all of you here, my dear friends, today. I'm going to end us on the words of the great, late great Maya Angelou, one of the greatest we have ever had, who met, she was born 1 year apart from Martin Luther King, and they met when she was the northern coordinator of the SCLC. So we're going to end with Maya Angelou, who said, "You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. And do you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cry. Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of a history's shame I rise, up from a past that's rooted in pain I rise, because I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise into a daybreak that's wondrously clear. I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hopes and the dream of the slave. I'll rise, I'll rise, I'll rise. The words of Maya Angelou, my dear friends, thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for coming out and being a part of this incredible movement, this continued movement. The march is not yet over. The race is not yet won. Thank you for being a part of what we are doing here today. Blessings, Ashe.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. Thank you so much to all of our spiritual teachers for bringing their own stories, their own lives, their own spiritual teachings to all of us. Thank you for all of you who have donated tonight. I just think we're like a couple $100 from $10,000. That is amazing. I never thought we would do that tonight. Thank you all so much. Thank you for those who listens. Thank you for your commitments for 2021 to spread healing, to show up, to stay the course. This is just January, folks, and I hope that you are rooted in and nourished for this year to come. We're gonna what are we gonna do? We're gonna we wanna thank our staff. Many of you are connected to different ones of our staff members, and I wanna thank their work that they do every single day. Connecting, organizing, responding, and supporting those who need someone to answer that phone and respond to that email and help connect a community of support. And thank you to our board members for organizing and initiating tonight's fundraiser. Stick around to schmooze. We're gonna unmute everybody and give you a chance to say hello if you'd like to do that. If you need to get some rest, please do. But thank you and take good care of yourselves.